let's dive into something that can be, well, incredibly confusing. We're talking about why some of the most intense and honestly most painful relationships are also the absolute hardest to walk away from. You know, that magnetic pull that just doesn't make any logical sense? We're going to decode that today.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? Logically, it just doesn't add up. You touch a hot stove, you pull your hand away. Simple. But in some relationships, it feels like the more it hurts, the tighter we hold on. So what on earth is going on there?
And there it is. This is the reason you hear all the time. Maybe it's the reason you've even told yourself. It's this powerful belief that those amazing highs, those incredible moments, they somehow just erase all the painful lows. Like one perfect day can make up for weeks of anxiety and confusion. It's a very real feeling. Okay, but what if we shifted our perspective here? What if this whole thing isn't really about love? What if it's actually tapping into our brain's most basic, most primitive survival wiring? All of a sudden, this stops being a conversation about romance and starts being one about biology.
Right, so let's get into the actual science of this, because there's a very real, very clear neurological reason why this happens. This isn't some kind of character flaw. It's actually a feature of your brain's reward system that's getting, for lack of a better word, hijacked.
So the clinical name for this is a trauma bond, and the most important word in that definition is cycle. This isn't about just one bad fight or one bad week. It's about a pattern that repeats itself over and over, mistreatment, followed by just enough kindness, just enough positive reinforcement to keep you on the hook.
And honestly, this metaphor is perfect. Think about it. When you're constantly feeling stressed or suffocated in a dynamic, that brief moment of good doesn't just feel nice, it feels like a life-saving gasp of air. Your brain doesn't just enjoy it, it starts to desperately crave it just for the relief.
And this brings us to the engine that makes this entire cycle run. It's a really powerful psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement. And understanding this, well, it is the absolute key to understanding why these relationships can feel so incredibly addictive.
So let's look at it this way. On one hand, you have predictable rewards. Affection is consistent, so the brain feels safe. It can relax. But on the other hand, you have unpredictable rewards. Affection is random. You never know when you're going to get it. And what does the brain do? It gets hooked. It goes on high alert, always chasing that next win. It's literally the same mechanism that makes slot machines in Vegas so addictive.
And this is the part that sounds so completely backward, but it's true. That unpredictable, sometimes sweet, sometimes cruel dynamic can create a bond that feels way more intense, way more consuming than a relationship built on just steady, consistent love. We mistake that intensity for intimacy, but what it really is the anxiety of never knowing what's coming next.
Okay, so let's really break this down. Let's put these two feelings, intensity and intimacy, side by side. Because learning how to tell them apart, that is absolutely crucial. One is fueled by anxiety, and the other is built on safety.
So let's compare them. A trauma bond? It feels like intensity mixed with a whole lot of anxiety. It often makes you feel smaller, like you're constantly having to prove you're good enough. The core dynamic is obsession. But healthy love? That feels like safety. It feels like consistency. It allows you to feel calm, and more importantly, more like yourself. And its foundation is respect, and the ability to actually repair things after a conflict, not just ignore them.
All right, so that's all the theory. But how can you figure this out for yourself in a real, tangible way? You know, the answer isn't always in your head. Our minds are great at rationalizing just about anything. Sometimes the clearest answer comes from your body.
This is a really simple but powerful little exercise. It's called the body vote. After you interact with your partner, just pause. Take one deep breath, really try to get out of your head, and just feel your body for a second. And then ask yourself these two questions. Don't overthink it, just feel the answer. Do I feel calm or confused? And do I feel grounded or smaller? Your body, your nervous system, it often knows the truth long before your mind is ready to admit it. And maybe when you boil it all down, it just comes to this. Yeah, all relationships have their difficult moments, their storms, but the relationship itself is supposed to be the harbor, right? It should feel safe way more often than it feels scary.
So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. We use that word chemistry all the time to describe that electric butterflies in your stomach feeling. But it's worth taking a moment to ask yourself, is what I'm calling chemistry a feeling of genuine connection? Or is it actually the feeling of my nervous system buzzing with anxiety? Because telling the difference between those two, that can change everything.